lit up, right? And it's continuous, so in both directions. Let's say infinite, right? Because, so he had to make time. So what he did was he took it and he put a little twist in it. So he had like a little loop that went back around to itself, right? And so he says, because otherwise how's it gonna make any sense? He says, I'm the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Well, how can it be eternal if he's the beginning and the end? Well, that point right there, when he gets back into the infinite stream, he's the Alpha and the Omega. He's at the same exact point. You see? Because time doesn't exist for him. All that shit happened already. In fact, the book he's looking at with the names in it, that's who he's looking for. But in order to find them, he had to make time. And he had to leave time in their own hands, but they're gonna fuck it all up. So then he had to come back, save him from time, get him back out of time, because now they have expiration dates. So by the time he does that, that's why he says, like, look, he says, one time I heard it's the darkest before the dawn, right? So if one evening starts first, so as we start down this path, right, in a circle, it's gonna be dark on the first half, the first part of the existence. The first half is gonna be dark. Then all of a sudden in the middle of it, it's gonna be like a dawning sun, like at the dawning, right? And that's like God coming back into the world to save it. And then he says, I'm gonna go up, and it's good for you that I do, because I'm gonna send the Comforter, the Helper, who's gonna let you do things I've done, but even more things, better things. And then he said, and then boom, so when he gets back up there, he starts sending light to shine, like his light was shining. And so now there's more light shining, right? And now it's getting brighter and brighter. And then when he gets back up to the top, that's one day. It's over.
Oh, okay.
You see how it works?
Yeah.
Old Testament, darkness.
Yeah.
Talking all about the dawning of the sun, right? Don't worry, it's gonna get better, guys. I know it's dark, but it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
And like a few people believed it. That was it.
Yeah.
Abraham was one of them. God counted his faith. When he took Abraham, he said, his name was Abram at the time. And when he took him up, put him up on a mountain, he said, you see all the stars up there? Well, first of all, he said, Abram. He said, here I am. And that Greek, that Hebrew word right there, here I am, that means, it's like counting in the present. What are we doing? What are we up to, Spike? What are we gonna do? You know what I mean? So he's like, here I am. Abram, come here. He took him, brought him up on the mountain. You see all those, Abram's 87, his wife like 79, never had a kid. You laughed at and shunned by everybody because they thought you must somehow be cursed by God for doing something, or your dad did or some shit, right? And so not only were they without child to leave their everything to, like everything they own to, like now they're getting ridiculed. They sit them in the corner by the door or some shit, you know what I mean? They still but they know that, but they still have like a lot of love for each other, and they're still happy people, and he still loves God for some reason, right? Normally you wouldn't really love God for all that. It isn't bad enough. And so God comes and takes him. He says, look, I've been searching around for a good heart, and you know what? You've been through a lot, and he's still there for me. So he put him up on that mountain. He said, look, see all these stars in the sky? He's like, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, you can't count them. Your descendants are going to fill the nations just like that. That dude could have said so much, like, yeah, well, if that ain't bad enough, me and my wife can't have a future with our children, and the neighbors like laugh and point behind our backs because of it. Now my God's gonna come up here and tell me something like, okay, like I'm 87 years old, but he didn't say any of that. You know what he said? This is the first time this word was ever used. He said, amen. Like, all right, can't wait for that to happen. All right, let it happen. You know what I mean? It's the first one I said, amen.
Yeah.
Like, and that was called, because that was like straight from the heart belief, right? No doubt at all. Like, he's like, if you say that, let it be. You made them. Like, if you made those stars, you can do anything you want. He's like, he said, all right. And he said, and God counted that faith as righteousness. And righteousness is right standing with God, you know what I mean? So like when he found Abram in the dark era, that like really like motivated him to like really do something for like people down the road. So he's like, okay, Abram, we're gonna work on this plan I got going on about saving you're pretty cool with me, I'm pretty cool with you. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna give you a kid. He's like, all right. And it was like 10 years, 12 years later, right? It's like, and then like when he's like 99 and his wife was like 85, right? 12 years after he promised him this shit, right? Now that like 20 years from death, people live to be like 120 in his day, right? So he's like 20 years from death, and he's like, all right. And God says, okay. He takes him outside, and his wife's like hiding behind the door or something, and he's all right. Next year at this time, you're gonna have a baby. All right, you're gonna have a baby, boy. It's gonna be a son, all right? And he's like, okay. And then behind the door, his wife heard that shit, and she laughed. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna have pleasure with the man again? Like, okay, right? And so like, and then when he called her out, her name was Siri at the time, for her name. And when he called her out, he goes, look, this time this year, you're gonna have a son. And he goes, and I heard you laugh. She goes, I didn't laugh. He goes, yes, you did. right? At the angel of the Lord. She's she's laughing because it's like at the absurdity of something like that. Could you imagine going up to a woman in a nursing home right now and say, hey, guess what? You're gonna have a giant family starting now.
Yeah, right.
She'd be like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. She'd laugh. She'd think that shit was hilarious. And then later on, she said after she had the baby, she rejoiced and she wrote, women are gonna be laughing about this for ages to come, like till the end of time. And it's true. It's right there in the Bible. People laugh about it all the time. She's like, she laughed again at how great God was when she got the child. You know what I mean? She's like, man, I can't believe, everybody's gonna be laughing about this till the end of time. It's true. And then, so she had a baby, right? And then Abram, like 7 years later, went up, and God's like, okay, Abram, do you love me? He goes, yeah, good. Because you're gonna have to. I hope you do, because if you can do this for me, I'll know it. Like, because we got things to do. We're gonna bring everybody back around. I want to come visit everybody. And so he said, all right, what do you need to do? I need you to get some wood together, some fire, and a knife, and that's it. And put them on 2 donkeys and go up to this mountain over there. And so, hey, you're gonna have to sacrifice your son. And he goes, okay. Well, I mean, if you gave me the son, I mean, you want to take him from me, I guess I'll see him again someday. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of weird, but all right. And and so yeah, so like he takes him up there, and his son is even like, he's like, here you go, carry the wood, right? And he's like, all right. And he gives the fire and the knife, and he's like, okay, come on. And he's like, the kids looking around like, hey, where's the sacrifice at, right? And Abram told him, he said, don't worry, God will provide, right? So like, that's some faith right there. He took him all the way up there. He told the servants to lay down, like a faith journey, went all the way to the top, built an altar out of rough cut stone. Okay, put the wood up there, like, blindfold on. All right, trust me, God will provide. Okay, so he gets up there and he's like, man, I was like, it's gonna work. And he's like this, and he's like, Abram, stop, you know what I mean? Don't kill him, because I ain't gonna do any good. So, but I just want to see if you would. And apparently you're on the same page as the big plan as I am. So if you're on the same page, I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna go ahead through your bloodline, to the King David all the way up. And we're gonna have there's gonna be a seed born, and that's gonna be the one that he's gonna be of my seed, and he's gonna be born, and he's going to use his blood to save everybody. Because he made Adam and breathed life to him, and Adam was made of dust. So, but there was no womb at the time, so he had to make a person before you could create a person, right? Like with the 2 of them. So he made them, and then he's like, the female, right? As long as nothing from the world has ever touched her womb, you know what I mean? She's still a virgin. Then God planted a seed there. Now, the child that was born was from a pure womb, and so when he's born, it could be pure blood coming into the world. You know what I mean? But there's spirit. That's a spirit creation, right? That's a spirit born. That's his first spirit born baby, like a human. His other one was created from dust. You see? So he had one baby come down here and save all the other babies, right? Because that's the only one that could do it. Because nothing else was pure, man. Like nothing. There's no blood that's not tainted since Adam and Eve. It's all tainted with death. Death is the curse of sin. The wages of sin is death. And so like it's a curse because you're born into it, and you have no hope the second you're born. This world and everything in it by design is to keep you from the truth. Like you're doomed as soon as you walk in here. In fact, if it wasn't for God, nobody would even know him. Because just like the very first person he revealed his son to, which is Peter, when that's why his name was Simon at the time. And he asked his 12 disciples, he said, "Who do people say I am?" He said, "Well, some say you're John the Baptist, some say you're Elijah, or one of the other prophets." He goes, "But who do you say I am?" And Simon spoke up. He said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living high God." And he goes, "When we're chicken dinner, blessed are you, Simon, the son of Jonah, because no flesh or blood or man on earth or anything on earth could have told you that. Only my Father in heaven could reveal that to you. And because you knew who the rock was, we're going to go ahead and call you Petra, which is rock. And Rocky, we're going to call you Rocky, right? So that's when he got his name Peter. And from that point on, he was doing really good and then failing, doing good, failing, like up and down all over this place. But as soon as he got the Spirit, like when Christ rose and he set the Spirit down to help him, and that light came on, that dude was solid to the very end. He went from being like, ooh, running head first to do good, do the right thing, and then fall flat on his face for it. He's always the one finding the snares in the minefield first. So, yeah, you gotta be careful what you wish for, because if you get out too far, man, Like he was walking on water. He's doing it. He's walking right towards them, and all of a sudden he looked to the left. He said, Lord, if that's you, tell me to walk the water to you. He said, come. So that was the command right there. Come, walk on the water to me. And as soon as he looks to the right, you see those big ass waves? He's a fisherman, and those waves must have been huge. You know, as soon as he had fear, and as soon as he had fear, he started sinking. But as soon as he started sinking, he cried out to the Lord. He said, Lord, help me. And immediately, it says, he pulled him up. As soon as he called, Lord, help me. It was amazing. That's that right there. It's amazing. But that's Peter.
I haven't read it too much. So
Huh?
I haven't read it too much. I don't really know too much about it.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, in this day and age,
Not too many people do.
no, not too many people know much about it, because in this day and age, people aren't doing the way that God originated. They're doing it different. Putting it inside of a box and having people come to you is not the way it was designed. When Christ died and then they sent that Spirit down, and his 12 students became Spirit-filled, and they went out and preached the word to everywhere, to people, right? They didn't let the people come to them because, somebody that didn't really know what they're doing brought somebody along with them, and it's just kind of BS. But that church, that original style of church, went far and wide quickly like a wildfire. Everybody just, like, they train disciples, they go out and do the same thing, train disciples. Pretty soon, it was spreading. But it got so bad, like in 140 AD, during I think it's the rule of Constantine, I'm pretty sure when he became power, they started killing Christians. They were like wrapping like lambskins around them and tying them on, and like lighting other Christians on fire and using them as a torch that burned for about an hour while they watched these lions chase around. It was crazy. They're killing Christians, man. Yeah, and then nobody's denouncing the Christ, because they're like third generation disciples. Like the person that they talked to, whose person they talked to, watched the dude die and watched him come back. They witnessed that. So they're like, I ain't gonna deny him. Tell with that. Like Peter, like he went from denying him 3 times because he was scared to, like, when it came down to it, after he was done spreading the word, Rome finally caught up to him and brought him in. They said, he denounced his name. He's like, nope, we're gonna crucify you then. Okay, but don't crucify me like my Lord was crucified, because I don't want anybody to confuse me with him. Instead, crucify me upside down, which is way more painful and thanks. I wanted to die, right? So like, yeah, so he's got crucified upside down. And he went from denying him to like getting nailed upside down. It's crazy. Like anybody that has a way out and doesn't take it because it's the wrong thing to do is pretty like, who? Me or him? Him or her? Her or him? Who do you want to shoot? Like pick one, right? Whoever says shoot me, like that's the man, that's the person, right? Like if somebody just randomly pulls out a gun at you and a stranger and they say, all right, which one do I shoot? Whoever says go ahead shoot me, man, that's the one right there. You know what I mean?
I get it. So.
That is. I'm serious. That is like there's like no greater deed you can possibly do than like know where you're going and then just go ahead and take the bullet. That's what it's all about.
Just do it blindly, though.
Yeah, well,
do it
blind is if you need it. Yeah. No, they've been teaching all wrong because of that. They've been doing it in the boxes. It's not what the original design was. Don't get it wrong. I mean, it was still operating for God's, according to God. Like, he'd still send people there to get the word, but like he would have to reveal it to himself. Like, yeah, those are called false prophets too. Anybody that's copycat preaching from other people, but doesn't have the Spirit, like the Spirit's the one that puts together the things and speaks to people. It's not himself, right? It's not himself. He's not the one. He's not the light. The light comes on and you can see which way to go. That's what it is. And so, like, but if you don't have that, you're like skimming through some other things from somebody did like a year ago, 2 years ago, and then you're just preaching the same thing. You just change it up to your own style. That's what they're doing. I can tell. I went through all the preachers on the Pando app. Pando app has like 100 channels. People that do sermons, like 5 of them. That's it. It's the only ones that are spiritual. Everybody else is just copycat.
Oh yeah.
Obviously too. As well, they just don't assume everybody's gonna watch every single one of them. So I'll watch every single one of them, and if you see one 8 months later from somebody else, I mean, say they copycatted it, bro. But there will be 5 out at the same time, and neither one of them like knew each other. They didn't like get a hit. Like, hey, like text didn't call forward and say, hey, what are you preaching this weekend? No, but it just so happens like beyond a coincidence, like they're preaching the same stuff, and same stuff like at the same time. It's like a movement type of thing. It's like walking people through step by step to which way to go. So it's like that one church of like 22, 5 years ago, they said, let's put together a 10-year plan. What should we do? What's the goal? And they had this big, meeting with a bunch of people. It's like they had like, I don't know, a little over 3,000 people in their church, right? Maybe more. And started with nothing really. And then overnight, it's happened for them. And that's the way it works. And so like they put together a 10-year plan and said, we're going to open up 1,000 churches in 10 years. And we're going to do it wherever God leads us throughout the world, right? And so, yeah, they put together a budget. They had some accountants get together and put together like how much, average, whatever. And it came up with like $120 million figure, right? In 2 years, they had $148 million. And this year, 5 years later, they already have 600 churches planted. And the reason why is because they're doing it the exact same way the first church did. They all got killed for it, but pretty much nobody really went back to that style. Now they went back to that style, straight mission. Like training disciples to go open churches, that's it. Not having the congregation come in, every year like sitting in the same spot and not like maturing spiritually. They're kind of like they're not working with what God is designed like as a new creation. He says you're not even from the world anymore; it's a new creation. So you get to work with a higher being, and then when you're working with a higher being and listening to his voice, because like he'll call your name, he'll be way over there. He'll find somebody he likes and just like call her name, right? And like you'll hear it, you're like, I think God's trying to say something, but you'll never know what he's saying. He says, the closer you draw near to me, the closer I'll draw near to you. See, there's no partiality. Everybody's the same, like exact same in his eyes. But the ones that draw near to him and he draws near to them, they can hear him now. Then he starts revealing things because you put in the work. He's willing to meet you. Nobody wants to put in the work. That's why you don't ever get to hear anything with the message behind it, the true message. You know what I mean? That's why nothing. It's like just lining up. Like, well, that's not the way I kind of like my God. Well, your God's like this. Your God, if you knew how much He loved you and is on a rescue mission for you, and it's been like that the whole time, it would crush you, man. It would literally crush you. Like how much time He spent, put in, or how much effort is. Like time doesn't matter, but how many like. For him to create you and how many thoughts and different things and just not just you, but like, do you know how massive of an energy, like he says, he's all knowing. We can't think of one thing, dude, that he hasn't already thought of. Einstein, he laughs at that stuff. He goes, I made that. He's trying to figure it out. And he's going real slow about it. You know what I mean? That's nothing to him. It's nothing. He laughs. And yet at the same time, he uses the world's most foolish to deliver his message. Yeah, isn't that crazy? He says that right in the Bible.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, he's not using somebody. Look, Paul was never one of the disciples. He wrote 2/3 of the Old Testament. He was actually somebody that was actually like with the original Jewish culture, right? And who was zealous for God. And we've seen this new Christianity thing pop out. He wasn't like nobody would believe that. Like he didn't believe that was the Christ that did that, right? So he's thinking that he honestly believed like those guys were like some kind of cultists. So he's running around killing them, right? Yeah. And God seeing his his love for God and like doing the right thing, but it's like totally perverted, right? So he's like going out to this town, Damascus, and he's like on the road, and he's just had 6 guys with him to go kill some more Christians, right? And like knew as a first Christian like ever, you know what I mean? And so like God like the Lord actually came and shone his light, and just his presence from his appearing blinded him. His glory just blinded him, right? And the 6 soldiers, they couldn't see it, but they could feel something, right? And they all ran away, just left him there. So he's like, look, he goes, his name was Saul at the time. He says, Saul, why are you killing our trooper, man? What are you doing? He's like, who's this? He's like, it's me. He's like, me, dude. Like the one that died and rose again, man. Like you need to switch teams in now, right? And he's like, man, yeah, you're doing wrong, but guess what? You're gonna do it right now. So go into Damascus and find this. I believe his name was. Might have been Simon also, but there's a lot of Simons in there. But he said, go find him and he'll take you over to his house. And then because they kind of stayed, the first church underground, right? Because they were just on top of it. They didn't want that word to spread. That they killed the Christ. No, their disciples stole the body and all this. No, that's not true. He showed himself in 40 days. 40 days after he rose, he showed himself to 500 people. And there's this, yeah, so. That's why it spread like wildfire, because everybody knew the Jews were lying. The Jews wanted to deny it because he came in there because they were like selling things in the temple. It's just like totally perverted, like it is today. Like the way it is right now here, there's only 2 countries that started out with a vow to God. Like God, we're gonna submit to your sovereignty. We know that you're the Lord, that our God gave you that lordship because you're the rescue. You're the one that actually was the hero that did it, and to show to show, like, he just gave it to his son. He's like, okay, you did it. And now you're back sitting back by my side because you did it when, man, like, because God can't do it. He took, God is God, but God took the human form in order to do that. He had to separate himself until he grew. Yeah, it got to be incubated. He couldn't send his whole spirit upon it until John the Baptist baptized him. And that's when he said, when John the Baptist baptized him, don't get me wrong, he was still guided by there's always a small light, right? But like in order to give him the full spirit, and like he couldn't do it until like he's ready to start his mission, right? Right after that. So John the Baptist, like when he brought him back up, a dove, like a spirit, fell on him, and then the heavens, the only place in the whole Bible where you see all three of them at the same time. Then the heavens opened up and said, and a voice came down and said, "That is my son, whom I'm well pleased," right? And that one paragraph right there showed all three of them at the same time. So the spirit coming down on Jesus, and then him opening it up and saying, "That's my son, whom I'm well pleased." So he's had to, in order to save the people, he had to come back on earth in a human form. In order to do that, he had to have a womb. You know what I mean? It's all big, like, dude. And like this, I'm probably not even getting 100% right, and there's so much more to it. Like I couldn't even, like, there's no way. I'm a human being, man. But I just know
that's something I gotta check out myself.
Yeah, you should, dude. I guarantee. Like I tell you what, like that's everything I'm saying is absolutely 100% true. And then 100%. Like I read the Bible 500
No,
hours.
I believe you.
Yeah,
I believe you.
like there's like, you know what? Like they've been getting this one parable.
Somewhat true.
Like they've been getting this parable along the whole time, man. Like all their boxes, because I always wondered what it meant. In the book of Mark, it says.
You have a cigarette?
No, I'm out. I don't have any. Yeah, there's a book of Mark. There's one, and it's said 3 times in the 3, like Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But in the book of Mark, it says one thing that's different than the rest of them. And it said, in the parable of the rich young ruler, he comes running up on Jesus, and he says, Jesus is walking, he runs up and slides in. He's like, this guy has been like looking for an answer. And he says, what must I do to inherit, eternal life? Right? And then people, like, he only said 2 things. He said that, and he said his answer. The second thing he said was shorter than that, and it's like, and that's all it says about him, right? And people have like when I heard that, they turned him into that he must be like an arrogant, they turn it into like he's an arrogant, like he doesn't quite understand, like, he doesn't, he's like selfish and all this because he has money, right?
Yeah.
And that's but that's not how it was at all. Because if it was like that, he wouldn't have been looking for the answer to eternal life. If he's greedy and richy and self-centered, then he wouldn't have been looking for eternal life. He's figured this is all he's got, right? And that's it. You know what I mean? Because because he's not going to admit there's something greater than himself at that point, right? No. He's his own God, right? So like God's never going to reveal. Yeah, God has to reveal himself, and he's not going to reveal it to somebody like that. Yeah. But if you have a lot of money and what you're doing with that, with the extra time, because you have money and all, like, now you have extra time to do things, right? You don't have to work, you have to feed yourself, you don't have to iron or fold your clothes or nothing. You can sit there, and if you want to know something, you can sit there and search for it all day. So he sat there and he searched. That wasn't just a question that popped in his head. That's just a question he's been doing since he was like a kid. What's the answer? How do I have eternal life, right? And so he had all extra time. He studied, man. That's what they did. He memorized the whole. Every time he read it, he'd notice something key, he'd pick up on. Oh, well, that means so he'd reread it again with that one little key, and it'd lighten up with more things. But it's slow going, man. He had all these things he was lacking, and he's figuring it out. And he's like, all right, I fixed that, right? But then some dude comes along to his little village, and he's like, hey, man. He's like, there's this dude up there. He's a teacher. He's around he's just popped up, man. He's a big thing. And he's teaching around the Sea of Galilee and the Decapolis, because there's 10 seas there, so we call it Decapolis. He's preaching up there, and he's answering. He's like, all the old prophecies in the Old Testament, he's revealing things that nobody's ever even revealed before. You know what I mean? He's like nothing anybody's ever seen right before. He's like, he's doing all these things. He's answering questions. Yeah, anybody's question ever had, he's answering. Like, we're hitting on the spot on. He's like, really? Well, so he's like, jogs up there, right? He's jogging. And he gets up there. He finally says, oh yeah, you see those 12 guys up there? That's the students. Go up there and check it out, right? So he runs in there and he slides in. He's like, teacher, what must I do to inherit? No, he said, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And she said, good. Why do you call me good? Nobody's good but God up in heaven, right? Nobody's good. He had not been revealed yet to anybody from God to Peter when Peter said, Peter's a disciple that turned a lot of Jews to the faith, but Paul was the Gentile. He's the one that they weren't practicing the Jewish religion. He went out there and shared the good news to everybody else. So they hit both the Gentiles and the Jews. Peter's Gentiles, Paul's the Jews. Paul wrote 2/3 of the Old Testament, man. And in fact, Paul elaborates on a lot of the things that the disciples are talking about. Yeah, so Paul he was just blinded, right? He was just blinded. He went into town and they set the scales off his eyes and he looked around. These guys are all scared because he's running around killing them. They're the same ones that took the it's like weird, it's like some kind of spiritual scales or something that's blinding him. And he could see again, right? And after that, everybody's like, ah. But he's like, he went out, man. He just went straight from that side to that side, full speed. Like he seen the light, basically, right? And so that's what was happening there. But wait, where's that at? I'll go back to that one. That's in Peter. Yeah, so the rich young ruler, right? So he runs up there, he slides in, he goes, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, good. Why do you call me good? I was the only one up in heaven that's good. That's my Father, right? And in other words, nobody knows I'm good. I'm him on earth yet. So first, as far as you know, there's the only one that's good. That's God in heaven. Don't call me good, right? And so he says, you know the rules. And he's laying out. And out of the 10 Commandments, he handed out the 5 that was like I guess man, right? Like do not murder. He said, do not commit adultery, do not covet, do not steal, and do not bear false witness, right? And so just things against fellow man. He didn't say those are the ones. He goes, you know those ones. And he said, teacher, all these I've kept since my youth. And then Jesus looked at him and loved him and said, one thing you lack. Now, when I said Jesus, took a glass over at him, like took a hard look at him, he's like, and loved him. I was like, wow, yeah, but Jesus was there because God so loved the world, he loved everybody. He sent him down here. But why did it specifically say that? It's a given, but why in that moment, right? The dude said 2 sentences, and that's it. What changed? What was so spectacular about that? I was like trying to figure this out, right? I was like, I prayed about it. I was like, look, it says right here in your other parable that a lit candle reveals the mysteries and the things, right? Because when you read the Bible with the Spirit of God, it opens up that stuff. It opens up the hidden mysteries, right? So I prayed about it. I was like, why does it say, looked at him and loved him? Because other commentaries from people like way back of old, like that wrote about it, these guys are supposed to be like all in tune, right? They wrote like, well, that's just a sowing like this, and that shows that Jesus, loved them now because he knew how he's gonna be later or something like that. He's seen him in the future, he knew how he's gonna be. So that they come with all these, they're pretty good conjectures and things that like sounds good. I mean, good enough to put in a commentary and be there for 100 years, right? But like, no, that's right though. It's like the reason why he looked at him and loved him when he said is because he said when he slid in there, because he said he goes looked at him and loved him. He said you lack one thing, but when he slid in there, he lacked 2 things. Out of all the things he lacked, he got knocked out pretty quickly. He lacked 1 thing. He knocked out, or 2 things, but the one of them he just knocked out pretty quickly right there on the spot. Because he said, good teacher, right? He said, why do you call me good? Nobody's good but God. And when he started out in his second sentence, he said, teacher. So Jesus looked at him like, dang, I got 12 students right here that don't get it that quick. Now you really are looking for, you really have been searching for things and knocking them off. He goes, okay, all right, mister, like, hear it, change yourself instantly and move on. You know what I mean? Like, dang, that's dedication right there, isn't it? That's serious. That's serious. And Jesus, he likes that. People are like getting it, and it's clicking, and doing it. Like, it doesn't take long, man. It's all on that person. Like, faith. That's faith, right?
No, yeah. He sends you signs in the universe, I think. And if you don't see them, then you don't grasp them.
That's funny you say that too.
The synchronicities. That's what I've been looking at. It's called synchronicities.
Yeah.
When things start matching up. You listen to a song and it matches up with your life.
Oh yeah.
You're walking through the store or something, or you fucking just the way people talk around you. Synchronicities. It just matches up with how you are or where you're at in life. If you don't listen to it or you try to fight it, then you're just gonna.
Yeah, no, it's like
be in the shit.
Like when you hear, you
just gotta try to keep following it.
When you hear a bit of information that's pure, I mean, if granted you've been bombarded with maybe 1,000 things that sounded good, whatever, and like turned out being like whatever, you know what I mean? It's like there's all kinds of like the world and everything in it by design is put here to keep you from the truth. And that's it. The world is
There's
no,
all the distractions trying to distract you.
Dude, it's like because there's dark forces working against everything in creation that God made. Like man, is like number one best on it creation, right? And it's here to corrupt it and destroy, devour, seek, devour, kill, murder, steal, lie, cheat, murder, steal. That's what he's here to do. And it's a spiritual battle. He goes, like what you see right here is even about like you see bad things, but all that has to do with the spiritual battle. And it's a legit thing. And we have a tendency just to believe the 5 things, the senses that God gave us to interpret our environment. But that doesn't, obviously, if we had another century, a capability of picking up another set of underlying things, then we could be in tune with what it's really supposed to be like. And that's kind of living like when you live outside of time, and like death, when you don't live in death anymore, it's kind of like the spirit gets involved and enlightens you to the things that are beyond what people can see, because everything's just ticking out according to plan. And the plan is, dude, to get he has a book, and there's like so many names written in it, and there's an end to that list. And when that last one gets found, that last one gets crossed, like marked off the list, that's it. Show's over. Like the big experiment's done. He already knows. How people. God searches hearts, and even if it's not, they're all broken. They're all like when you go to a junkyard and you're looking for something to rebuild, like they're all broken, right? But he's searching through it all, and he can see what it's gonna be, man. You know what I mean? He already knows. God can see what's in. God knows you, but he sees where your heart's at, and if he sees something he likes, man, some kind of selfless type of love in there, buried in there, that's what he goes for. He doesn't reveal himself. He said, "Many are called, but few are chosen." That's what it says. And he says, "The road into destruction is wide and well-traveled, paved and well-traveled." He said, "But the path to eternal life is very narrow, and there are few who will find it." When you're doing $120 down the freeway, right? Like in that little dirt path is somewhere right there, right? You're gonna blow right by it, man. If you're just caught up in the world, that's it. But if you're not all caught up in the world, and if there's something more out there, if you're like thinking about the Creator, like, all right, I know there's something I can't see. Well, if you can't see it, how do you never see it? He has to reveal himself to you. So yeah, so if you're like thinking, well, I can't see it, but I want to see it, that's a knock, right? But he doesn't answer the first knock ever. Hardly ever. I can't say ever but he has. But normally it's like he knows that dang well that if he reveals himself to you and it's not the right time, like let's say younger, like got a girlfriend over there, maybe a wife over there or something, you know what I mean? If he reveals himself to you there, he knows like you're not gonna be in a spot where you're just gonna like the ways of the world is to drag you back in. You know what I mean? It's like you're in a corrupt part of your life, and it's like you're gonna change. You don't change it until things start getting to the point where you're starting to question like, what the fuck am I doing and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, why isn't my life going the way I thought it was gonna, or things like that. You know what I mean? What changes do I have to make? Right? It's more than just physical. It's more than just mental, man. It's spiritual too. It's all guys. Everything's a triangle. Everything that God creates is like a triangle, man. Bridges are triangles. You know what I mean? That's the support system. It's kind of like he says like this. He says like he goes ask, believe, have faith, and then receive, right? But it's a perfect equilateral triangle, and all you got is a pencil, and you have to draw a perfect equilateral triangle. How are you gonna do it? You need a tool, right? You gotta have at least a compass or something, right? And then you have to have a ruler too, because you want to set it to the right size, right? So you get a compass and you measure it out, 3 inches, and you take this point and you make a mark 3 inches like this, make a little half circle, and then you go where that half circle was, and you make another one, or I think something like that.
I don't know.
There you go. Or you make you have to make a shit. No, you can make this. You go like this. You go mark. Okay, you got a mark right here, and you make a second mark. And from the second mark, you make a mark over here, and from this mark, you make a mark over here. And I think that makes an equal triangle. But so basically, though, if you get 2 sides done with a compass or something or a protractor, so if you get 2 of the sides done, right? If somebody's like saying, okay, I can draw 2 of them. If you can then it's just one line from dot to dot, just connecting the dots after that. So if you have a tool, if you have somebody showing you, okay, I'll ask, and all believe, then basically all a person has to do that doesn't have like the faith or the like doesn't feel connected enough to ask, then all they have to do is receive it, and receiving it is a faith all by itself. It's worthy of righteousness. You know what I mean? So like if somebody has like a prayer, like let's say something's going on in their life and they need a prayer and they need it answered. So somebody that has had prayers answered and believes that they're going to be answered, then they pray, and that person who's like just trying to get there, then they receive it, and it works. Because
No, that makes sense.
ask, believe, and receive, you know what I mean? Because it takes certain things.
Kind of makes sense with the synchronicity. I mean, that's what I feel like a synchronicity is kind of like what God's talking to you in a sense.
Yeah, everything's perfectly designed, man. It's a weird
lean
thing.
into it. Try to lean into it.
No. Like last year, April 1st last year, I heard a voice in my head. It said, "Get sober and go to the program down here." Get sober, then go to the program, right?
Yeah.
Don't go to the program and get sober, right? So I got sober. Well, I had 7 days, but 5 days I got sober. I went into that program, left everything behind. Well, that's what. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Okay, so the rich young ruler, right? He said one thing you lack. He goes, go home, sell everything you have, give it to the poor, follow me, and you'll have eternal life. And this guy's like, dude, if I sold everything I have and gave it to the poor, I wouldn't even know how to make a peanut butter sandwich. I've never made one, right? How am I gonna live? I'm gonna need things. How am I gonna do it? How am I gonna get by? Like I've always had these things, right? I never had to worry about it. And it's like, besides, the whole time he's been looking. Most of his spare time is spent looking for this answer, right? How do I get to eternal life? And so he's like, well, it's not easy, but he went away kind of sorrowful because he's like, he had a lot of things. And I suppose he didn't know how he's going to like wash, take a bath, the next day. Like he's got to go with water and heat it up and put it in the tub. He's like, that's going to be a lot of work, right? But the thing is like, it's like the guys, the students, man, like they were fishermen, man. That means they didn't make it far in school. Because when you're a kid in the Jewish culture, you went to school and you memorized the first 5 books of it's called the Torah, the Moses books. And so we memorized all of them as a kid. And if you didn't make it that far right away, if you dropped out right away, you normally ended up being a fisherman. Like they had 10 cities around that lake right there. So you worked there and you went to the bar, you know what I mean? There's hookers around there because all these like poor fishermen, like work junkies, just like, that's all they want to do is spend their money.
Yeah.
So they...
You see that?
Yeah. And so, yeah, so like he chose, those guys left everything behind right away and just let them follow them. Like said, you know what, I recognize what you did. Like he told them, like they didn't catch any fish, so he said, cast the nets back out for one last haul. And they did, and they couldn't even get it in a boat. They never seen anything that's unheard of. And so they got to shore, and when the fisherman fell on his feet, he's like, depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinner. Like, I don't know who you are, but you have to be related to God to do that, right? He's like, that's unheard of. You didn't even get a half a boat full of fish. So we can't even get the fish in the boat. So they had to drag him in. And so like, Jesus, I tell you what, just leave everything. He goes, rise up, don't be afraid, rise up. He goes, follow me and become fishers of men. Just leave all that stuff behind. And they never look back. And this guy, the rich guy, he's all sorrowful because he wouldn't know how to do it without it. These guys recognize this guy. If you wanted this guy, they would never need anything. This guy just pulled like a year, like that fish was a year's worth of wages, man. I mean, they could have went and sold that and went and gambled like for the next 6 months straight. But nope, they left all that behind and went and followed him. Yeah. So like they're like, if this guy can do that, there's nothing to worry about. Like we want to know what he knows. And so they followed him around, and like, even though they were looking right at them most of the time too, they a lot of them didn't really get it. Like it's funny like that. Some of the people that weren't even Jews, man, like recognized Jesus and trusted him, believed in him more than the Jews that were around him that like studied that their whole life. Like they knew who God was, and these people don't even worshiping some other God, but they had more faith in Jesus to like heal or whatever than the guys around him could ever have. So that's the reason why Jesus died for the whole world, not just the Jews, because they loved him. They needed help too. So yeah, it's like,
I think I should look into it more so I could be more at peace, because it's pretty interesting how it has to do with the rest of the world.
But one last note. So his disciples, right? Because Jesus was telling them, like, okay, pretty soon here I'm gonna go get nailed to the cross. I'm gonna first one get ridiculed, lied, false witness, spit on, beat up, beat up some more, interrogated, brought before people, stripped of my clothes, beaten, and then called a liar, you know, like trumped up charges. They're gonna nail me to a cross. And then, you know, I'm gonna die, and the third day I'm gonna rise again. Guys didn't bring back Jesus, said the right hand of God. And so they were a little bit distressed about that the first time I heard it, but they said, okay, after you know, the first time I heard it, this is the first time, so he's telling this one, because they, okay, at that time, when you come back, he said, I'm gonna go up there, I'm gonna prepare a kingdom, I'm gonna come back with my new kingdom. And they said, okay, so when's this gonna happen, right? He said, well, there'll be all kinds of things going on at the time. You'll hear people saying, here he is over there, or here he is over there, or there are lots of false prophets at that time. Basically, people in boxes, right? And then he said there'll be a lot of that. He goes, but, like, he called them hypocrites too, because he goes, you can look over there and see the sun is like turning orange on the sunset. You guys can tell, you know, what kind of weather it's going to be tomorrow. And if there's a wind blowing from this direction, a gale force wind, well, you know, if there's going to be thunderclouds or not, you can discern all that, right? You figured all that out, but you can't figure out when the end of the times are, you know what I mean? So he said, this is what to look for. He said, you look for those false messages, like, that's just kind of heads up. But then he said, the earth will start to go through, like, labor pains, like beginning of labor pains, earning for the new creation is what Paul says in Hebrews. And so they go through birthing pains, right? And he said there'll be more earthquakes. There'll be lots of earthquakes. You hear about that, stars falling, or weird sights in the skies, weird marvels, you know, like satellites all lined up in a row marching around there, or giant stars, you know, space, you know, there'll be marvels in the sky, he said. And he said there'll be lots of earthquakes and different acts of forces of nature, like, you know, volcanoes and stuff, like unheard of, like. So, like, you know, New York had an earthquake. Tennessee 3 years ago had its first earthquake, and now has earthquakes every day. We have 300 times more earthquakes than we did, like, you know, 4 years ago. 300 times more a day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, lots, right? And just suddenly, like, everybody's like, Taiwan just a couple days ago had a 7.4 earthquake.
Yeah, there was one in New Jersey or something.
Yeah, and like, you know, the Iceland, that big volcano, they cleared out that whole city, the only big city on there. They cleared it out of there. Yellowstone's like starting to, like, erupt, you know, get heated up, and then all kinds of things. Fires. He said fires, tragedy fires. Like Maui got wiped out, right? So he said all these things would be happening. He goes, but just know that that's the birthing pains. He goes, but when the sun is completely blacked out and the moon doesn't shine, he said, you will be at the door. Right? And I thought about that, because that happened in Israel one time. Well, it happened the day they crucified him. It turned, the sun went black for a period of time. But, like, that was a sign to the people at that time. There's only two countries that said, two countries that started, and, you know, with God as the foundation: Israel and the United States of America. The United States of America is the only other country in history that have ever, like, founded it, started it. The paper's all written up under God, like under the sovereign, like under God's, like doing God's will, right? Yeah. Like that went along just fine for a while, but just like everything in the world, it becomes corrupted, and that's what happened. And they took prayers out of school. First thing they want to do is strip religion of all its power. They don't want people to hear about the real truth. And as long as they had them in a box somewhere, like, you know, and it wasn't like some, like, revolution, then they weren't worried about it. But now it's like a revolution. Right now, it just started like 5 years ago is the beginning of it, and now every year it's like snowballing, and it's really taking over like quickly, like fire. And it's really spirit-led people that are doing it, not like these little, you know, teach the same thing over and over again every year. Like, have like a little cycle, nothing's new, everything's dry, no power, like no truth behind it, you know, like no, like, revelation, like. And but now it's happening, and he says at the end of times, when that happens, you'll be at the door. But his church will also be spreading like that again. That hasn't happened since the disciples, man. The disciples went, like, after, like, everybody's kind of like, well, I'm not sure how we're going to do this. We're not fully equipped and all this. And even Peter, the guy, you know, the head dude right there, the one, Jesus called him the rock, because he was the first one that God revealed Christ to. So he's the rock, right? And even rock kept failing over and over again. He said, you'll deny me 3 times that night I get crucified. And then he got arrested, and he's falling around, like, from a distance, see what's going to happen. They say, hey, aren't you one of these? No, I'm not. Right? 3 times, and then the rooster crowed, right? And just as the rooster crowed, Like he was standing at a charcoal fire warming himself, and Christ came walking around the corner. He looked at him just as he said. And he just like the third time he's like, "Hell no, I don't. I'm not." Just like, "Why you keep asking me that?" You know, and Jesus looked right at him, just walking by, and it's like, boom. That crushed him, man. He didn't think he was ever gonna come back from that, but Jesus went and found him after his resurrection. He didn't recognize him in the first place. On a charcoal fire making some fish, and he walked him back through. He said, "Do you love me?" "Yeah, I love you." "No, I do. Do anything for you." "Do you really love me?" "You know, feed my sheep." He said, he said, feed my flock, tend my sheep. And he said, "Do you really love me?" And he's like, "Damn it, Lord, you know I'm frustrated. You know I love you. You know where my heart is. You see everything. Of course I do." Just like when he yelled at that person. "Oh no, I don't." You know, so he walked back to all three of them over the same charcoal fire where he's at. So like, kind of like washing his mind and letting him know, hey, everything's forgiven, man. Like you were gonna do that regardless. I mean, I knew you were gonna do that, and yet. You know what I mean? You got to do it for a reason. So the same guy that's been a failure, he's like, guesses who he is. You know, like God revealed to him first, then falls. Guesses who he is and falls. You know, left and right all day. He's the first one running, right? And he's the first one to find a landmine. Like, 'cause he's always up first. I'm gonna go get her bone. Well, you found that landmine again, didn't you? And so like when Jesus said, okay, all right, he goes, I'm gonna rise again, and he goes, then I'm gonna ascend to my Father in heaven. And they're like, kind of worried about it. He goes, it's better for you that I do, because when I do, because I can send you the comforter and the helper. See, that's never happened in the world before. The world's always been dark, but the comforter and helper is a light. That's the one that lights people up and lights up the secrets and the mysteries of the kingdom. And so that way you can spread the word. Until that light's in there, nobody can understand it. You can read the Bible 1,000 times, you can think you understand it, but even what you think you understand isn't even right. It's like only way you can read that Bible is like with 100%, like the really super hidden secrets, is you gotta draw near to him. Because some of it has to be him enlightening you. There's things in there like he's saved hidden until the end of times. Like the rich young ruler one, like the way he looked at him, you know, and loved him. Like that's because the kid had the ability to hear him, make immediate corrections, and move on, doing whatever it takes. Because even like those guys around him, like I said, even those guys around him, they were falling. Peter was like falling left and right. He wasn't changing news. This kid wasn't even around him. He had faith. Okay, went from good teacher to teacher. All right, what's next? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, but he couldn't leave everything behind like they did. And faith, that's faith. And it only really comes to God. Like, look, God has a soft spot, and this is who Jesus came, and he preached to, teached to, healed, cast, you know, like saved was the poor and oppressed, you know, and down.